Hello, everyone, and welcome to SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges, and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you do subscribe so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted to be joined today by Amanda Gardiner, Customer Advisory Manager at UK&I for S4HANA and Business Technology Platform at SAP. So welcome, Amanda.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
And in today's episode, it's one of our latest in the series of interviews with senior leaders in the SAP community to talk about their career, tips for getting ahead, and challenges they may have faced. And just before we get into that, Amanda, keeping on that theme of leadership, so to speak, is there any leadership advice from when you started your career that you still use?
Yes, there is actually, and it was a conversation with somebody about backgrounds and where you come from, and potentially that you're sometimes different to other people that may or may not have ended up in the technology business. And the piece of advice this individual gave me at the time was, he said, never forget your roots and don't be proud of where you came from.
I think that is excellent. I think that is very sage advice, should I say. And I often look, especially when I'm doing these recordings and thinking, okay, my northern twang may not come across to everybody, and perhaps people need a phrase book or a translation guide where the further south we go in the UK. But yeah, very proud of my northern heritage, and I completely agree with that sage advice. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
And to move on to our main discussion and to start things off, if you could, would you be able to give us some background on your career and what led you to working at SAP?
Yeah, it's coming up for a bit of a milestone actually this year for me. So and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, I started my career as a software engineer, and that led into consultancy, which I think a lot of people did. In my particular era of leaving university. Which was amazing, and it allowed me to see some of the world and live in different countries, etc. So that consultancy grounding was brilliant for me. I then sort of moved out of that almost accidentally, because I was sort of in the programming, in the dungeons, and then somebody asked me to do a bit of a customer presentation about something that we'd built at the time. And I found that I really enjoyed that and really enjoyed interacting with the customers and so on and so forth. So I kind of fell out of programming and consultancy into what we used to call pre-sales. And that's where my career kind of changed slightly, and I went much more down that pre-sales direction. And was really fortunate to work for a couple of companies that allowed me to experiment with different technologies, both what was business objects at the time and Cognos and Microsoft. And then I went into the analytics side of things. I worked for SaaS for a number of years, and did my master's actually while I was working as well. As part of my studies there was around applied statistics. And stayed with SaaS for a long time, and then sort of got into leadership via that route as well. So I started to lead the public sector team there, and then sort of that progressed through several years actually at SaaS, and then I stepped outside of SaaS for a couple of years to go to a cloud company to really understand where we were going with cloud. Some 10 years ago that was, and then SAP came knocking. And offered me a role within SAP to come and lead some of the industry teams at the time within what we were calling pre-sales, around financial services and public sector and our energy and discrete side of things. And I've been here 7.5 years now, and it's gone like that. It's gone in a flash. So that's kind of a summary of 25 plus years.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I kind of like, I suppose, your transition from the programming into the pre-sales and working with customers, actually being, I think you called it down in the dungeons or whatever, in the coding, but understanding what's on each side of the equation, i.e., the actual development of the solutions, but also what the customer needs and sees. That is invaluable, I would guess, in your interactions with customers.
I think so, and I think it really helps. So it really helps to translate between, to help you, talk to customers, so translate between that sort of pure software and customer business language. And I think it also continues, Craig, into the understanding how it gets deployed, how it gets maintained, etc. And having been on that side of it as well, knowing, particularly now we're in the cloud world, that actually, you don't just lob it over the fence once you've sold something. It is very much about making sure it's deployed and used in the right way as well. So I think, it's been, I'm always really excited when I talk to people that come to SAP, or perhaps are interviewing at SAP and have come through like a consulting background as well, because I think you just sort of, you've been under the bonnet is the expression I always use, and I think that's really helpful.
Well, thank you. And how big is the customer advocacy team at SAP? And I suppose, what is the role of that team?
Yeah. So customer advisory now is made up of, it's a big part of the UK business. It's 80 plus people. It's focused across industry. So we've still got our financial services, public sector, our energy and discrete. I would have missed some, I'm sure, retail, consumer products, etc. So we have industry expertise within those teams. So what we mean by that is we have people that fundamentally understand how the world of public sector works, or the world of manufacturing and supply chain work, and they bring that industry gravitas when they have those conversations with the customers. We then have our enterprise architect team, which are what we would classically call still enterprise architects, the ones that piece it all together, understand how it all works, understand how it's going to work in the field, etc., and make sure everything fits together. And then I'm currently looking after a team of solution advisors. So the solution advisors, again, are people that have deep technology focus within an area. So again, my S4HANA team is really broad and wide. Okay, so I've got finance people in there, I've got manufacturing experts in there, I've got asset management people in there, supply chain, etc. So and the same with BTP. Again, we have a broad spectrum of people there that have deep knowledge in some of the capability, like DataSphere. We've got SAC experts, etc. So that's another sub area. And then we have our industry value advisory team, which are the team that help support the customers in creating the business case in order to move forward with the software, and even helping them redefine in some instances the business processes that they use as well, best practice. And then finally, we've got a team that we have that look after what we call our experience center. So the customer-facing element of the office, where we bring customers in, we allow them to get on hand with the software, and we have a lecture theatre, presentations, etc. And we have a team there. So it's 80 plus. It's a big chunk of the organisation.
Wow, that's great, because it kind of, I suppose that advisory aspect is, I suppose people will say, okay, pre-sales, sales support, that kind of thing. But when you break it down like that, with the architects, with the industry value advisory, etc., and looking at all of the different, I suppose, different elements of extra value customers can extract from the solutions in helping them build a business case, etc., really can help customers right at the start of that journey or their transition to drive it and make an impact in their business by bringing all of that together.
Yeah, and again, we are still, we're still moving into the cloud world. We've got customers that are there, we've got customers that still need to get there, we've got customers that are thinking about it, etc. But what we're seeing more and more is that it's becoming quite circular in our approach. So it is very much, I dealt with this customer 3 years ago, they're up and running with this part of the software, but they're now thinking about potentially doing something slightly different, or looking at adding something, and the team will go, from my point of view, the solution advisory team then go back in to say, right, let's understand how you're consuming the software, let's understand how you're using it to then help with that next bit. So yeah, we sort of talk about, and that's why we are customer advisory now and not pre-sales, because it's not just pre-sales anymore. There's a lot of continuous post-sale work that goes on.
Fantastic. And just going back as well to that transition in your career, if you like, from programmer to the customer side, and what was then pre-sales and customer advisory. So what advice would you give to people who are perhaps looking to move job roles or into different functions?
Yeah, I think it's, if you talk about SAP specifically, I think there are so many opportunities within SAP. What I've just reeled off within customer advisory is a small subset of the business. There's so many opportunities to go and look at other things, try other things, etc. I think my advice would be, take the risk, right? If you're generally interested in something and you want to go and find out a bit more about it, and you've got the support network around you, go and take the risk. You rarely regret trying something, I believe, but you'll always regret not knowing. And I did it, Craig. I stepped outside of the technology platform within SAP and stepped across to the industry value advisory team for a couple of years to run that. Absolutely, really, really enjoyed it. Sort of a very different part of the business, but it also helped me realize what I missed about things that I'd left. And I'm, as you know, I sort of spoke about at the beginning, I came from software, I came from programming. So to be nearer that technology is more important for me than it is to be nearer that business, that business value piece. But yeah, I would always say go try it, because I think, you'll always look back and go, oh, what if, and I would much rather look back and go, I did that, it was a bit of a disaster. Wasn't in my case, but it might have been, so therefore that's okay as well.
It's learning. That's, we're here to learn.
Yeah. I've always said to people, when you get to a point in your career or your job or anything, actually, even outside of work, if you can do it metaphorically with one arm tied behind your back, you should probably go try something else.
We all need that challenge, or should seek out a challenge, perhaps, as you're saying there. Yeah. So if we go back to before you joined SAP, did you have any interactions with SAP as a user before working for the company itself?
I didn't. So I saw SAP as this sort of big blue corporate company who did ERP, at the time. That was the big flagship. And I have to be really honest and say it didn't fill me with a lot of excitement. I kind of went, not really sure I want to go and work for the big blue corporate. But actually what I did was I started to look at what customers SAP had and the breadth of the technology that they had and still have, frankly, absolutely astounds me. And then as I sort of became part of the interview process about potentially joining the company, you start to meet the people and you're like, okay, this is why this company is successful, because it's got some phenomenally good people, and not even good, actually, that's an understatement, excellent people in it. So my interactions around SAP were incredibly limited. I'd come up against them in a couple of instances, sort of when I was at SAS, we would come up against them when they were, the business objects side of things, the reporting side, the analytics side a little bit. but not in the full plethora that we know SAP as now.
Thank you.
We know our community, but we don't know yours yet. Why not share the benefits of your UK&I SUG membership with those who don't know about us? The UK&I SUG referral scheme rewards you for helping to grow and develop our community. You can check out the link in the description to find out more about how you can get involved. Terms and conditions apply. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
And so, obviously, we talked there about the people element and the big blue corporate, if you like. So what would your advice be to anybody perhaps considering either looking to work for SAP themselves or perhaps even somebody within the SAP ecosystem, which to me, as when I first joined UK&I SUG, it's a whole world in itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I said to a really good friend of mine a few years ago, he was coming for an interview at SAP specifically. I said, you'll either love it or hate it. And he went, what? And I said, I think it's one of those companies that you either go, oh my goodness, this is amazing, I buy into the technology and the depth and the people, or you just go, no, this isn't for me. And I kind of stand by that, to be honest. I do think it is a little bit Marmite for people, but equally I think if you're in that ecosystem and you're using the technology and you see the benefits of it, and when you talk to the customers about the way that they do things now compared to the way that they did things 10 years ago with our technology, it's such an exciting place to still be. And that's what I really love about it, that as a company that's been around 50 years, it's still evolving, and it's back to that, SAP doesn't have one arm tied behind its back. SAP is always looking at how does it grow, how does it get better, how does it do things more efficiently and effectively, how does it have a bigger impact on the world. And that's I would say to anybody, if you buy into that and you're excited about change and how things evolve constantly, then yeah, SAP is a great place to be, and within the ecosystem as well.
And so if we're also looking at kind of the world of SAP, if you like, and I suppose the wider industry, part of that STEM kind of industry, what do you think the STEM industries, the software industry, if we're looking at SAP specifically, what are the ways that those industries can do to appeal to people for a more diverse background and perhaps to encourage more women to work in that sector?
Yeah, that's a big thing for me around, promotion of more women in leadership roles, definitely that sort of increased visibility of female leaders, that's so important. And Layla has just become MD for the UK business. Phenomenal, right? I'm so pleased that we have a female MD. I'm so pleased, and I think that in itself just personally for me just sends out such a great message, that we have a female MD in a technology company in the third biggest market unit in the world for SAP. Brilliant. Is that enough, Craig? Of course it isn't. And you've talked about the STEM side of things. I personally, do a lot around the initiatives for this. We partner with some schools, we partner with organisations to promote this. We talk about technology career events, at really, at like primary school level still, and I'm still very much, we need to go and promote the fact that we have female leadership. We need to go and promote the fact that, women are very capable of doing the jobs that were, a few years ago very much seen as a male-dominated industry. So for me, it's about getting out there, talking about it, encouraging, if people are naturally good at certain subjects, then go follow that, definitely. And that's what I did. I did sort of classics at A level. didn't have the, and I always talk about this when I talk to STEM organisations, I didn't have the option to do computer science. I was the wrong age. You did maths and you did history and you did, English literature, those types of subjects. But when I went to university, I did a computer science degree, which was really out of kilter with the A levels that I'd done. And I'm still so pleased that I made that decision. So again, I always sort of almost tell that story to say, if you've got the opportunity to study things that you really like now, and maths or computer science and physics and such like is those types of subjects, then follow that. Don't get pushed down another route just because it's typical for the school to promote this, or it's typical that these sort of people do these sorts of subjects. I think for me that's so key. So yeah, sort of the visibility of the leadership, encouraging it from a very early onset. And the other thing, Craig, it's like yourself, it's having male allies, right? And again, drawing that out as well all the time, for us not to be just promoting women in leadership, but for men to be also promoting that as well.
I think that is crucial, is that support and help that's available there, and making sure that we're all working towards that. I mean, as you know, we have our women in SAP community that's developing and growing year on year. And, the main aims from the perspective of UK&I SUG for that is to try and bring more women into the UK&I SUG community, have more speaking, have more, moving up into those and understanding how to get into those leadership roles, etc. And I think, back to what you were talking about there, about into schools as well, that understanding at that age that anything is possible. You can be anything you want to be, no matter who you are. And like back to right at the beginning of our conversation, what your roots are. You can be anything you want to be.
Definitely.
I think helping people understand that and to follow the dreams is, a key thing, that nobody should be allowed to knock that out of anybody.
No, I completely agree. And I think, again, and even several years into my career, I think it's also really important that you get that coaching network support unit around you as well as you move forward. And you've mentioned the women in the user group. I've got some good friends out of that user group. That's it's lovely. You create very different bonds when you connect at those types of events and get to know people. And so that for me is another element. I would always say to people, try and get some coaching, get a mentor, but again, do what works for you. That doesn't work for everybody, that it just doesn't. But if it's one of those things where you need someone to bounce some ideas off or some thoughts off, then go grab someone, and like the user group is a great example. There is nobody in that user group that would not coach somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
And I agree with you as well. It's great to see Layla as MD. I mean, oh God, I've just celebrated my 20th year with the user group now, and wow. Layla is the first UK&I MD at SAP I've known.
Yes.
And I've known a few, but so I think that's fantastic. My understanding is that there was a female MD many years ago, but it's well before my time.
Yeah.
But I think that is amazing. And
I think someone said to me the other day, it's like 23 years ago or something.
Is it?
So yeah,
Wow.
like you say, way before we were involved in SAP in any way. But yeah, no, it's brilliant. Yeah, it's really good.
Completely agree. And I'm going to move completely away from business now, actually, and talk about triathlons for a moment, if I may, because you are an accomplished triathlete. I understand.
I don't know. I turn up and give it a good go. I wouldn't go accomplished.
Well, accomplished to me is anybody that completes a triathlon, I'll tell you now. I think fantastic. So What got you into that?
Oh, my brother-in-law, actually, weirdly. So he did an event a few years ago called Weekend Warrior at Blenheim Castle. And it's back-to-back triathlons over the course of 2 days. And there was a few of them that were doing it. And he said, could you come to my wife and I? Could you come and help? We were like, what do you mean come and help? And he said, well, we need help with, taking the wetsuits back down to the lake after we've done the run, and then making sure the bike's ready to go and we've got fuel on the bike, etc., etc. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that. So I had a couple of really sunny days at Blenheim Castle watching him do these multiple, like eight or nine triathlons over a few days. And I could cycle. I've always been able to ride a bike like a lot of people, and I could do a bit of running. Played hockey at a reasonable level for a few years. I was like, I wouldn't mind giving this a go. And my wife turned to me and she went, you can't swim. And I was like, yeah, but you can learn. I said, you can learn to swim. And she's like,
I can
anyway,
float.
I was like, right, can't swim, right. So I went and got a few lessons, and I could kind of swim. I could kind of float, Did I know how to swim properly? No. Can I still swim properly? Not brilliantly. But yeah, I went and got some lessons, and I joined a club, and that's how it's kind of progressed. And I love it because I love the fact that it's 3 disciplines. And I love the fact that they're all very different disciplines, and you have to stitch them together. So yeah, I really like that about it. But yeah, so I blame my brother-in-law, frankly, for it.
Oh, fantastic. So tell me about your research. I believe you've just completed one at the weekend.
Yes, I did Belvoir Castle, which was really nice actually. It was a bit of an odd distance. They called it there's various distance, but they call it a super sprint distance. So you do a bit longer swim and a bit longer bike ride, which is probably my strongest element, the bike. And then the run's a little bit longer as well. So yeah, and I was checking the results and I came top in my age group, and I was like, oh, they've so got this wrong. And then I was like, there was probably only 2 people in the age group, but there wasn't. There were 6, so I was really pleased. Yeah, and I was really chuffed. I overcame quite a lot of demons around the open water swimming as well. It's quite difficult to describe to people, but it's very different to a pool. Stating the obvious, because there aren't edges, you can't see the bottom. It's cold, so it's a very different swimming, and it's like I say, I pretty much have to battle some demons every time I get in the open water to get round, and whenever I get out I'm like, yes, another swim survived.
Oh, well, fantastic, and congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
And I kind of quite like part of that where you said you couldn't swim, and then, okay, so you can't do a triathlon. And it's back to something I was reading yesterday. If anybody tells me I can't do something, there is the kind of encouragement, if you like, for me to go and do it.
Yeah. And I fundamentally believe there's nothing that nobody can't learn. It doesn't mean that you're going to be brilliant. I will always be one of the last people, from a triathlon perspective, I am one of the last people out of the water. I'm a slow swimmer. I'm never going to be fast, and the triathletes that are really good at swimming are the folks that have swam since they were little. And also, they're not 5'4", right? They're normally taller people. They've got bigger arms, so
Webbed feet.
Exactly, yeah. So I think you're right. I think you can go and try anything, but sometimes you just have to accept that you're not going to be the best at it. You're just not. And that's okay, because I think you just, to give anything a go and turn up and give it your best. And my parents used to say that to me when I was at school, and it really used to annoy me. They used to say, oh, you can only do your best. And I used to be, oh, goodness sake, but what if your best isn't good enough? And actually, as you grow into an adult, you do realise that I think very much that putting your best effort in is actually what people want most of the time. It's not true. About the fact that you're, last weekend was a great achievement, but equally I've done a lot of triathlons where I'm not in the top 3, but that's okay, because I still went out and gave it my all.
Yeah. Fantastic. And I suppose you run your own race, and that's it. You're competing against yourself, really.
Yeah, and that's a very different. So again, somebody I've always done team sports, always, and then then to have it's a bit of a battle with your own head sometimes. You're right, you're racing your own race every time. But yeah, it's good. It's good.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you for coming along on that little journey outside of the world of business with me. And as we come to a close now, just finally moving back to the world of business, if we may. If you looked into your crystal ball, what do you think will be the biggest change we'll see in the world of business and/or IT in the next 5 years?
That's a great question. I think it would be remiss of me to say not to say generative AI and machine learning is only going to evolve, right? If I look at where it was, I think back in 2006 when I was at SAS and some of the things that we did, back then with the technology versus where we are now is remarkable. I only see that growing exponentially, to be quite honest. And we talk about automating complex tasks for businesses. We talk about creating content and even making, crucial decisions from an AI perspective. I see that just getting better and better. So I think over the next 5 years, we will see a lot of things that we perhaps do now manually, perhaps become a bit more automated. I mean, I think if you look at the way you engage with some of the apps now already and some of the generative AI information you get back around information and how quickly that comes, it'll be a bit like the iPhone. In a few years' time, everybody will just go, yeah, that's how it is. We live with it, and it's part of our world. So I see that having a massive impact in a good way, operational efficiencies, etc. I think the other thing we'll see alter, and we have to, based on what I've just said, is the cybersecurity side of things. So for me, I think cybersecurity will just become a core business strategy. It will have to be everybody. It will have to be at the core of everything that everyone does. And again, we'll have to think about what does that emphasis look like on the ecosystems with the customers we deal with, and so on and so forth. So yeah, cybersecurity for me, generative AI, and probably I think the last one would be the green IT solution side of things. So again, but we have to keep making a change in how we treat this world. And we can't talk about sustainability and a green planet and so on and so forth and not have that integrated into core applications that we use and our customers use. So yeah, they would be my three things that I would say we'll just accelerate over the next 5 years.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And that's really interesting. And I suppose when you were talking there about the green element on kind of the solution side, the business side and the planet side, it kind of started me thinking about an old mantra from years gone by of, what gets measured gets done. And that's a key thing, isn't it? Understanding our impact and then how we can reduce that impact.
Yeah. So you think about, companies have to report on, carbon footprint now. That's not going to go away. Renewable energy sources, constantly looking at how we do things differently. You've got to be more efficient with our hardware. How do we make sure we're doing the right thing? We talk about the cloud environment, but actually are we making sure that that's efficient and green and sustainable moving forward as well? So yeah, I think I still think it's a really exciting time to be in technology. And I think, the next 5 years, I think are going to be terribly exciting, and we'll see lots of good things come out of the use of technology. And we have already over the last few years. Nobody can live without an iPhone now, right? Literally, you cannot how do you do your, how do you do your banking? How do you, there's so much that we do on these tiny little computers now, and again, so if you take that theory, and then apply that to the sustainability elements and the cybersecurity elements, it's just going to grow and grow. So I'm super excited to still be part of the IT industry and see what happens.
Oh, thank you. Amanda, thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for your insight. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for asking and having me.
And thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Please make sure you do subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and follow your dreams.